Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Human Design Parent podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm honestly a little nervous. This is my first episode, but I have so much that I would like to share with you, and I have such big plans and hopes and dreams for this podcast and this community that we're creating. So thank you for hitting play on a new episode of a new podcast. I hope that I can bring all of the things that you're looking to learn and to share in these episodes. Anyway, who am I? So I'm Claire. I am 40 years old. I had my big 40 last year. I'm a mum of two girls, aged 5 and 7. I'm a wife. I'm an only child. I'm originally from the UK and I now live in Australia on the Sunshine Coast. And since the age of 18, I have lived, worked, or studied in so many countries around the world. UK, Germany, Australia, Middle East, New Zealand, Singapore, USA, lived and worked throughout Asia. Obviously, travel for me is a big thing, as you will come to learn, I'm sure. I'm also a human design guide and a certified life coach. I initially started out in my career as a operations assistant in a very fast-paced emergency medical company. I have a degree in European foreign languages, and now I'm a life coach for parents for the past few years. And previously, I guess I may have, potentially judged someone else if they'd have come at me with all of that information about their past. But something that human design has helped me to do is to really breathe and recognize that all of my life experience, and as it continues for the rest of my life, that's part of me. That's who I am. There's no wrong. There's no being on the wrong path. There's no making a wrong decision. There's no should have done this. Why am I quitting this and switching career paths and changing countries? And, I have no purpose and no consistency. And actually, the biggest gift that human design has given me is that that's perfectly by design, that I've lived like that. And so that for me, and I'll get into more of these in the episodes, what human design can give us, but that straight off the bat was for me the biggest sigh of relief, that actually deep down I knew that each decision I made to change countries, jobs, careers was okay and was right. And yet society and, those around us can often shame us or make us feel that that's, that we're quitters or we're flaky or whatever the thing might be. So I want to, first of all, in this episode, give you a little bit of an insight into me and to what I'm hoping to bring to the human design community, and also my journey into human design and why I then decided to help others with their human design parenting journey. And then I will share at the end how you can continue the conversation with me and continue learning and growing. Okay, so human design. So we're currently in April 2023. So we are now, for me personally, almost 3 years into my human design experiment. And that's what if you haven't heard of that, that's what in the community, in the human design world, is known as you've started learning about it, you've tried some of the changes, or you've become aware of some of the things in your chart. Maybe you've had a reading, maybe you've had a few different readings, maybe you've had some coaching, maybe you've read up online or you've read a book, and you're in your experiment. So I'm about 3 years into that. Now, I've always been into personal development. I became certified in NLP almost 17, 18 years ago now. So NLP and hypnosis have always been part of my journey as a consumer. I've always used those tools to help me in my whether it be exams or mindset work or relationships or hypnobirthing for having my babies. It's always been a really big thing for me. So I've always been open to trends or movements or different ways of evolving and improving. However, when human design hit my radar, I kept ignoring it. And I heard it from so many different sources. So yes, I heard it on personal development podcasts where you would expect to hear it. And this was back in the early pandemic days of 2020. So, we were at home a lot more. I was listening to podcasts even more than normal. And yet it was still, human design wasn't everywhere. It was still something that people had not heard of widely. I'm just going to take a sip of tea. Obviously, I'm British. I love my tea. And yeah, I kept hearing about human design. And honestly, at that time, my youngest daughter was 2. I was still breastfeeding, not sleeping really well. My eldest daughter hadn't yet started school. So I had them, with me a lot, which was lovely. But it was also a very tiring and draining time. And so for me, I was doing a lot of other inner work or, other work at the time. And it was just one more thing that I just couldn't get my head around. I could not take on or learn one more thing. That's how it felt at the time. And yet I kept hearing people in very different circles talking about it. The wonderful lady who was our daycare provider, our family Montessori daycare provider, mentioned it just in passing one day. And then different podcasts mentioned it that I wouldn't really expect to. And that's when I thought, right, okay, there's definitely something in this. I need to look into it. So I did what everyone does initially. They Google it and they find a free place to look at their charts. And yeah, a lot of mine definitely made sense. There were parts in it that just instantly went tick, 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 that's me. And other parts that were at the time was a no, like no, that's not me. And yet in the 3 years since, I've come to realize that is actually part of my design and that is actually part of who I am, and to start to accept it. And that's the experiment, right? It's not, I've never done a reading or worked or spoken to anyone in the community who has instantly just gone, yep, everything ticked a box, because we live in the shadow of so much and we have work to do. So it's an evolving process. But honestly, it didn't really light me up so much. I've done a lot of other, things like DISC and Myers-Briggs in the corporate world. And so this was just another tool. It was an amazing tool, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like suddenly a light bulb moment went off and I was on the path to how my life was going to change. I looked at my husband's, and again, that made sense. Both my husband and I are sacral generators. We both met at work in that fast-paced emergency medical environment. So that made sense that we were both able and competent to work very demanding jobs like that. And then I just suddenly thought, oh, this isn't the typical personality test where you have to answer questions. Because honestly, when I've done those, I was always a little skeptical, because we can answer in a way that we think the tool or the system wants us to. And yet human design cannot be cheated on. Let's say it's just your birth, time, date, location. So unless you get it wrong or you don't know any of that information, you literally cannot cheat. And you can also pull up charts as soon as the baby is born, essentially. So I pulled up my charts for my children, and as I said at the time, they were 2 and just turned 5. So that was the light bulb moment. That's when, those You hear about these scenes of like the heavens opened and then the shining light came down and you had all these outer body feelings. That was that moment when I pulled up their charts. So my eldest daughter is a projector, and there's so many layers and there's so many different nuances to all of the different types, and I will go into that in so many other episodes. But the things that I immediately got from learning about a projector and about having a 5-year-old projector in my family was there was a line that it said they can often be like restaurant critics. They just can see how to do things in a better way. They are here to share their insights and to guide others to do things in a better way. Now, she was 5 at the time. So yes, a lot of children will display those tendencies of the toast isn't cut right, this isn't hot enough, that's not right. So there was definitely a pinch of realism added to it, but everything that I'd read, and I pulled up, I did a paid chart for her, everything was, it made sense. Okay. And then I went even deeper with my second child. So she was 2 at the time, just turned 2. And her chart came up as a reflector. Now, I'm not sure what your knowledge of human design is at this point, but reflectors make up only 1% of the world, basically. So it's the most rare type. And whilst there is no good or bad in human design, I was a little, I guess, disappointed in a way, because there wasn't much out there about reflectors, and especially nothing about parenting a reflector, because it was all about the generators and we make up 70% of the world and blah, blah, blah. And so what I did pick up was accurate for her. The fact that she can be quite sensitive, not great on understanding the concept of time. And obviously she was 2, so that absolutely made sense. Even things like aversion to light, sensitivity sometimes, being a chameleon, so literally acting and being a different person in different environments and different energies. When I then read an awesome book, The Reflector book by Amber Clements, it was great to read that from an adult perspective to apply to my parenting. So all of those things about about pulling up a chart and knowing that I was parenting a projector and a reflector was instant light bulb moment of, wow, this is my mission. This is what I need to understand. This is what I am here to do for me as a parent, for our family, but then also for others, to help others, not just reflectors, but funnily enough, that is how my coaching work has gone on to. I often do work with reflectors because I do have quite a unique understanding of them. However, I am a generator, so there is that limitation there. So looking at the charts of my children, the impact on me was really profound. I mean, as so many parents say, I definitely feel that my children came to me to teach me, and they always will. As a personal share, my husband and I, we didn't think we could have children. We weren't even sure that we wanted them. And then when we did think that we wanted them, we were told multiple times by multiple doctors, it's just not going to be possible. And here are some options that you can explore. And then a beautiful, blessed miracle happened. And yeah, we had two healthy pregnancies, 2 healthy babies, and now 2 healthy children. So very, feeling very, very grateful for that. And so I definitely, as soon as they arrived in our lives, it's always been my mission to just do the best by them, be the best person and version of me, and also help them to do that. What I found, though, is that that's nice to say, it's harder to do. You know, at that time, I'd been on a, I guess what you may call the gentle parenting journey. You know, I'd read the books on gentle parenting, and it all made sense. And we, you know, things like we didn't do sleep training, we did baby-led weaning, we did breastfeeding, or I did breastfeeding on demand. You know, practices that are generally, if we were to lump them in a label, would work towards that gentle parenting, conscious parenting stream. But what I found at the ages that they were when I discovered human design, some of those things, I'm hesitant to say didn't work anymore, because they did and they do, but I needed more. I needed a little more personalized ways of helping, especially my reflector, helping her to live and operate as her best self in this world. Because the things that worked for my eldest daughter didn't work essentially again with the second. And as an only child, this is new territory for me. I just assumed that having two children with the same parents and the same parenting methodology would result in the same two children, which I realize now is, you know, ridiculous to say out loud, but that was what I thought. I didn't know any different. And so human design really gave me an absolutely personalized guidebook, toolkit, whatever you want to call it, for my children, for their specific needs and their specific tendencies and requirements and expectations. Okay, that's literally how it felt, and it really changed the game for us, honestly. It's not that it suddenly makes everything work. It's not that they suddenly, you know, always do as I ask, because, you know, they're two very strong-minded young women, growing women. So I don't want them to be that, but obviously we live in a family, we want harmony, we want peace, we want respect, we have boundaries. And so human design has definitely helped us to work out how we as a family operate best. Both my husband and I as a couple, as a married couple, and also as a family, as a growing family. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. I did say that this is not the most polished podcast that you may hear, but it's real. Just as a side note, I'm recording at home. We have a dog. He loves to bark when anybody walks past the gate at the end of the garden. So yeah, you know, I'm just keeping it real. It may be that my children join me at some point as well. But yeah, keeping it real. I find that when I first listened to podcasts, I was intimidated by how professional they were. And I feel that the pandemic has been great in that, you know, we've lowered our expectation, but that in a good way, that we want to hear from other people that are real and not necessarily in a, you know, really flashy recording studio, because at this point, that is not me. Okay, so when I started to properly delve into human design, so I was working part-time, I had the kids, it was a pandemic, you know, all the things. It was so inconvenient. It was, you know, the thing that came to me that I needed to do was the thing that I didn't have the time for, which is interesting looking back now, because it's now, I could not imagine not having this knowledge and these skills for my children. And it's also really shown me how, by design, following my desires as a sacral being, as a sacral generator, one step after the other, following desires is, that's how I need to be living. And so practical ways, because people always say to me, yeah, but what does it actually mean? Like, it's great to know that they're blah, blah, blah type and they've got this profile line, but what does that actually mean? How do you actually parent them in a way that honors their design? And I will most definitely go into much more detail in individual episodes about each type. But for me, personally, as a parent to my eldest daughter, who's an emotional projector, I've noticed definitely her emotions are the things that guide her, and so we help her to recognize that. So she's an emotional projector, which means that she needs ideally to have the time to ride the wave. That's what you'll hear in the human design community. Ride the wave. Don't make a decision when you're at a certain low point or a certain high point. Ride the wave. See how the decision makes you feel at each of those points. Make a decision somewhere in between when you know that you've got then crystal clarity on what that decision is. And so what we do for her, when practical, because obviously, life, but when practical, we'll say, how do you feel about doing this? Or if she says, oh, I've been asked to present something at school, and I don't know what to do, and I don't know when to do it. Okay, so we'll help her to tune into her own feelings and her own feeling of time. And so maybe today she'll say, I'm a bit nervous and I think that I want to do it about this topic, but I don't know. And we say, okay, well, that's a great start. Let's keep talking. And then the next day she might say, oh, I've decided that I want to do this and I'm going to do it next week. So I'm going to start preparing it now. Okay, great. And then 2 days later, she might say, I've completely changed my mind. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea, but now I'm going to do this. Okay, cool. Great job. And then she will, at the last minute almost, or in my mind at the last minute, she will say, secret option C is what I'm actually going with. This is what feels amazing. It's actually a bit of a mix between this and this. I'm ready. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I can't wait. And it's been amazing witness her going the past 3 years, going through that cycle of decision making. And as a parent, I just hope and wish for her to always tune into those feelings. Because as parents, obviously, we want the best for our kids. We don't want them to make decisions that are forced or convinced by others. I hope that she can always tap into what feels good for her and not be rushed to make a decision. Now, people always say, yeah, but that's not really realistic in the real world. Sometimes you have to make quick decisions. Of course, absolutely. And as two sacred generators parenting our children, we make gut decisions, and that's how we have lived our life. So this is new territory for us to be open to making slower decisions or taking our time or completely doing a 360 on what we initially said and then going back to the initial decision. But my response to that is, well, this is how we change things. This is how things were done. And that's not right for everyone. So yes, of course, this isn't about, am I going to go and have dinner out tonight or should we stay home? Of course, there are times when you make decisions in the moment, but big decisions or decisions that are really important to you, if you are an emotional projector or an emotional being, riding that wave and helping your child to do that, if that's their type, is, I believe, just one of the biggest gifts. Because as she gets older, like I say, I hope that I can still have that dialogue with her. If she comes to me with issues in the teenage years or later on, how does it feel? Where does it feel in your body? Are you ready to make that decision yet? Do you want more time? And just helping her know that she can give herself that gift of time, I hope is, I hope is one of my parenting wins, but time will tell. Now, my beautiful younger daughter, as a rare reflector, has many of the similar traits of projectors. So it's really interesting that we have created a projector and a reflector. It's beautiful. Now, as a reflector, obviously, I will go into this in a lot more detail in other episodes. She's heavily conditioned by us. We are her family of origin. This is natural, this is normal, this is what happens in families. But being aware of this at least gives us a little insight into how we can also help prepare her for later life. So for an example, my youngest daughter's very attached to big sister. She loves her, she copies everything she does. And yet when her older sister is at school or not around, she can really go into herself and be more hermit-like. When her sister's here, she's loud, she's life and soul of the party, she's ruling the roost, she's bossing people around, she's shouting, yelling, screaming, singing, loud. She is loud. And yet, when her sister's not here, she's very different, and she sings to herself, and she wants to spend time just talking to her dolls alone. And obviously there's nothing wrong with any of that. That's absolutely fine. But what we really try and help her to understand is, do you need that time more often on your own, or, not banished into her bedroom on her own, but just, do you need that time not with your sister so that you can figure out what you want to play and what you want to do? Because as a reflector, she won't, until she's in her 20s or even later, she won't actually have a sense of self. This is what I've heard from other reflectors, and we have a reflector on the podcast coming up in a few weeks. And this is what she has also said as a grown-up reflector. She often, as a younger person, didn't know, is that your feeling or is it mine? Is that your drama or is it mine? Is that your opinion? Is it mine? And so what we're trying to do, even with our 5-year-old reflector, is to say, that's what they say, that's what they do, that's what they think. What about you? How does it feel for you? Would you like to do the same, or would you like to do something different? And so what we are trying to do is empower them, both of them, to tap into what is theirs and what's not theirs. Because both reflectors and projectors generally can often get so engrossed in the other and not have a sense of their own opinion, their own self. And those are just two very small insights into how this can help parenting. And then finally, for both me and my husband, recognizing that we are sacral generators. Both my husband and I have defined spleens, defined root centers, and obviously our defined sacral. So we are go, go, go. We can move mountains. We can make a decision today and we will do it tomorrow and it will be done. We can often leave people standing thinking about what they're going to do, and we've done it. Now, what we have both learned through human design, that's great in its own right. That's, generator 101, but also it needs to be targeted. Like, we need to follow our desires and actually tap into, what do we want to do? What do we want to feel? What do we want to accomplish? And follow that, rather than just going all gung-ho on, the one thing and then getting burnt out and falling into that trap of, well, I've started it, so I must finish, and I will let someone down if I don't do this because they rely on me, and blah, blah, blah. That, for us both, has been the biggest unraveling of human design. And also parenting non-sacral beings, we have to remind ourselves daily, multiple times, they are children, they are slower, they need to be slower, and we need to be slower. So this has been really a great journey for us as a couple as well, and it's an ongoing process. There is, in my mind, there's no perfect way to do this. So almost coming to the end of the first episode, I just want to share really some personal hopes for this podcast and for my work in the world. I hope that you don't mind. I hope that you can indulge me in this. Look, my desire, as I said to a client the other day, and she said, you need to have this front and center because that is exactly why I want to work with you. My wish for every child is that they feel seen, heard, and loved for exactly who they are. And the only way that that can happen is if their parents do the same for themselves. So whilst I focus on parenting by design, it's actually a little sneaky way to say it's actually all about the parent. It's not all about the parent, but the majority of the work is on you and your design, because you've had your life, or you've had more of your life than your children. And so children will live their design if left alone. They will naturally show you their design. It's us as parents that have fallen into shadow patterns, fallen into conditioning, fallen into jobs and careers and relationships and habits that we don't want to be in, and we don't know how to get out. That's who I love working with, because the ripple effect of that is endless. So practical steps that you can take today. Pull up your chart, get your child's chart, look up on my blog. I do a lot of blogging, all free content for a wide variety of human design topics. And just remember, there's no, this is one thing in your toolkit. It's not the silver bullet of parenting, and me and anyone else in the community should not be saying that if you are hearing that. Yes, it's great. Yes, I'm obviously a huge advocate of embedding human design into your parenting and into your family dynamics, but it does need to come along with other modalities and other work, let's say. And it doesn't answer everything. Sometimes kids are just kids. Sometimes it's just them being a 2-year-old. And so that can often be a relief as well. And I'm a realistic parent. I lose it sometimes still. I yell, I mess up. I am in no way perfect. I had someone on Instagram message me the other day saying, oh, you'd be so ashamed of what I said to myself and my child today. I wish I could be the perfect parent you are. And I actually cringed, because I am in no way perfect. It doesn't exist. It's an absolute dream to be the perfect parent. I don't want to be the perfect parent, because what would I learn? How would I evolve? But what I do say to parents is, 1% better. Let's just improve ourselves and our lives and our families, the connection that we have. How would it look if it was just 1% more connected? And obviously we can go way more than that, but it's always a good starting point. There's no bad design. You'll see a lot of things out in the community of, oh, you can't, there's so many, but some of the top ones you might hear is, oh, you can't do this if you're a projector, you can't work long hours, or you can't be a leader if you're a generator, you have to be a follower. And I just call BS on a lot of that. And I hope that in this podcast, I can shine a light onto what feels right for you versus what someone will dictate to you or try to, because honestly, no two charts are the same. No interpretation of two charts are ever the same. And there's reason for that, because it's got to come down to you. You've got to embody that design yourself. So who is the Human Design Parent podcast for? You, any kind of parent, caregiver, custodian, guardian of children, because you are responsible for not only the safety and well-being of the next generation, but also the emotional health of what comes after us and who comes after us. So no pressure, but there is work to be done. There is definitely work to be done, and it's never too late. It's never too late to reparent yourself or your children. It's never too late to change. It's never too late to acknowledge and then make changes. It's never too late. Let's do parenting differently. And I think that the people who will be attracted to listening to this podcast are the ones who are open to doing things a little differently. I will bring on multiple guest episodes, guest speakers. I've recorded a few already that I'm so excited to bring to you. And this is beyond the realm of human design. So this isn't just a human design podcast. It's about the type of human design parent, what they might be interested in as well. So I've got business moms, I've got self-love coaches, hypnotherapists, psychologists, finance for kids experts, and on and on and on. I have a huge list of guests that I've got lined up because podcasting for me, listening to podcasts was one of the saviors of my early parenting journey, because I lived away from family and friends. We lived in a new country when my eldest was 6 months old, and it was lonely. And so just hearing in my ear that someone else was maybe struggling or had struggled in the same way I had, or had similar beliefs or desires for their parenting, was so valuable to me. And that's what I hope for my community, that I can deliver to my community as well. If you want to take any of this work further with me, it's an absolute honor for me to work with parents. I see the transformations in my own parenting journey, and I'm so lucky and blessed to work with other parents and see those transformations. It doesn't always have to be long, ongoing work either. I offer very short packages, including readings. I don't offer one-off readings currently because I believe there is a limitation into what they can offer a parent. I believe it needs a little more follow-up and support. That's why I went and got myself certified as a coach, so that I can support parents in a really vital way. But you can find all the details in the show notes and on my website. And ultimately, I love working with parents who, want to have a deep sense of trust and purpose in themselves, and then in turn help their children to feel seen, heard, and loved. It really comes down to that self-trust and having that desire to do things differently, to do things better. So I offer free weekly content. I will be podcasting, I blog, I write emails to my community every week. I am on Instagram. All the details are in the show notes. I also have a digital store, so you can take a look, but there is an ever-growing list of digital products, customized human design charts, ebooks, guides, toolkits, etc. And then, of course, you can book in with me for a one-on-one connection reading and coaching. And I would be absolutely honored to work with you and your children. If you, I do need to add one thing. I'm just looking at my notes for the first time. So I'm not a therapist. I'm not a mental health professional, a psychologist, or a marriage counselor. I'm here to help people work on their future selves, set goals, make changes. I fully respect and honor the work of any of those mental health professionals. I've accessed their support myself throughout the years, and it can often be really timely in conjunction with the work that I do with clients, or just after. But I am very clear that I do not support any mental health situation, and I urge you to then find your own local provider. I am so delighted that you joined me today. I hope that you can, with grace, listen to this and know that, it's just a mum in her spare room in her house in Queensland, trying to get a message out there and to support you on your parenting journey as well. And I hope that you can join me again. Please share this with another parent if you got anything from this. And also, please leave me a review if you enjoyed this podcast in any way. As a new podcast, that would be amazingly helpful. And I would love to hear from you if you would like to have a question answered, it can be anonymous, or if you would like me to look at your charts or your child's charts as a podcast episode, I would love that too. All the details will be in the show notes. Enjoy your beautiful day, and thank you again for joining me on the Human Design Parent podcast. Thank you.